I'm Stefanie Mosca. We're here in Austin, Texas at IT Expo Austin 2012. And today on the show, I'm joined by Mike Coffey, CEO and COB of Commetrex. Mike, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Stefanie. Wonderful being here.
I mean, it's always great to have you back here. Why don't we talk a little bit about the company and what you guys are doing at the show this week?
Sure. Well, we are showing two new products, FaxTap for SIP and Smart ACS, as well as Release 2.0 of Smart ATA, which adds Commetrex Smart FoIP, which we've talked about at several shows, to Smart ATA. So it's a big deal for us, and we thought we would share as much of it as we could with your attendees.
Absolutely. So for those people who are not as familiar with the technology, why don't we talk a little bit about that and kind of elaborate on those two new products?
Sure. Well, you could say that we've been on a crusade for the last several years to make FoIP work in carrier networks. Now, for the last several years, FoIP, especially with T38, has been reliable in enterprise networks. But as soon as ATAs and fax servers started to take advantage, pardon me, of SIP trunking, problems with fax completion rates in carrier networks started to arise. And we were troubled by that, as well as the rest of the industry. And as a leading developer of fax technologies, we said that, well, anything that can improve the utilization of FoIP is good for us, also good for the industry. So we set out to find out why. And we did a lot of testing with an enterprise fax OEM customer of ours that had a friendly mail list for fax broadcasting. And we performed the testing, and we actually found out why. We solved the problems and ran to the attorney and applied for a patent on it because we thought it was a big deal, and it is. That became what we call Smart FoIP, and it solves two major systemic problems. Well, there are other problems, and one of them is just that the carriers hadn't taken FoIP seriously. They hadn't done the kind of testing. They just didn't do their homework. That's changing. But Smart FoIP does solve these two big problems. The first one is when T38 reinvites arrive at the calling origination point, too late to be accepted without actually killing the call. Right. And the other is PCM clock sync problems, too technical to go into, but at any rate, it's the actual cause of most of the failures that people see of G711 based FoIP calls. Not all FoIP calls are T38, many of them are still G711, and they have a problem with PCM clock sync. Smart FoIP takes care of that. So solving these two problems, making them disappear, is we're able to actually increase the completion rate from sometimes 85 to 90% to 97 or over 98% in some networks. And it makes this little guy the only ATA that can reliably send faxes into carrier networks with a high completion rate. So we allow, this means that service providers that use it can stop saying to their customers, keep your POTS lines for fax. Sure. We can go pure FoIP and save a lot of money.
And as you mentioned, these are two issues that, so many people run into these days in organizations and using the IP networks. So you're really in a unique position, and especially with the patent that you guys have pending. So, I mean, obviously you guys have a lot of great things going on right now. Can we elaborate a little more on FaxTap?
Sure. FaxTap, well, we've had two FaxTap products, FaxTap for PCM and T38, but we have combined the two, added the ability to parse a Wireshark file, and support for T38 version 3 with V34. V34 is a fax modem that doubles the speed, halves the time it takes to send a fax, and so far hasn't been widely supported. So this makes it a first. Proud of that. FaxTap for SIP will take a Wireshark capture. Wireshark is probably the most used tool for analyzing IP calls in telephony or any other application, actually. Well, it picks up where Wireshark leaves off for FoIP. And it will take the capture file, it's a pure software product, and identify all the calls that are FoIP. It will then extract the image from the call and give the user the image. And this is good for lawful intercept applications. Plus, it gives you a detailed analysis of the call, including a ladder diagram of the SIP session and a ladder diagram of the T30 session. So it does a lot to fill in a big gap in affordable analysis tools for the users. It's targeted at the service provider or anyone else that is interested in quickly and affordably analyzing their FoIP issues, as they say today, in the network.
Now let's talk a little bit about the SIP forum. I mean, you guys obviously are very embedded into the industry. How do you kind of help to address the issues that are happening right now?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm co-chairman of the SIP forum FoIP task group. And after the little testing session, actually it was a big testing session, that I told you about earlier, I was eager to do anything I could to work with the SIP forum to identify the problems in international carriers. We were very fortunate to team up with the I3 forum. Now, a lot of people don't know about the I3 forum, but it is the carrier group, the carrier organization that is charged with the responsibility, big responsibility, to come up with the best practice recommendations and standards that international carriers will use to make the transition from the old network to the IP network. And they decided that that transition couldn't be made unless and until they brought FoIP along with it.
Right.
And so we have found that the I3 forum is just a great partner. We're working very well together, and we've made a lot of progress. We have largely completed the testing of hundreds of international calls, thousands of international calls, with 14 I3 forum member carriers. And that is resulting in a best practice recommendation that is in draft form. And the biggest finding, the major recommendation, is that carriers just stop treating FoIP calls as if they're voice calls.
Sure.
Well, they can't do that unless they know that a new call is going to be an FoIP call. And today they don't know that. They don't know it until the destination is reached and a fax tone answers. We've all heard fax tones. So what we need to do is make a little change to the standards so that the originating endpoint, the calling endpoint, can say there's a very good chance that this call is going to be a fax, and do the right thing. We need you to route this call over IP networks, at least until you reach the destination PSTN, at which point, of course, you have to make the conversion. And so we're encouraged that that is going to mean a major advance in the success of FoIP, and not just international calls, but national calls as well. And we encourage end users, ITSPs, carriers, everyone to encourage everyone else that when this little tweak to the standards, the SIP contact header, come out, that they implement it, follow it, use it, and we'll see what happens.
Well, you certainly have your...
We think good things are going to happen.
You certainly have your work cut out for you, and I mean, obviously the company, you know, you guys are major players in the FoIP industry right now, so we look forward to hearing more from you guys in the future.
Good.
Mike, thanks so much for being
Stefanie,
here today. Always a pleasure.
A pleasure.